Are you recording at home in your bedroom, your basement? Are you looking to get started? The good news is that there's a lot of great gear out there for not much money. Bad news is there's a lot of crap out there as well. Now, YouTube is loaded with tons of content about good gear for the money, but it's difficult to find videos about the stuff that sucks. This is that video. Now, disclaimer, if you're a gear manufacturer and your product winds up on this list, bear in mind this is my personal opinion and should be treated as such. If you're that upset about it, please consider making a better product instead of suing someone for writing a bad review. You whiny suckhole. You know, I've featured so much cheap but great gear on the show, it's kind of hard to keep track of it all. There is a lot of really great cheap shit out there for home recording. Cali LP6s, Art Pro VLA compressors, Lewitt 440 Pure mics. Yeah, absolutely amazing stuff that won't hurt your wallet. But not everything I've dropped my hard-earned money on has been a winner. I've definitely purchased a few duds over the years. Hopefully you can benefit from my bad luck and avoid flushing your money down the toilet. Here's a list of things you should avoid like a bad case of herpes. Number 1, college audio courses. Hey Glenn, I thought this was going to be about gear. Well, this is a question I get asked more often than not. Should I go to recording school? Now, the answer to that is it depends on the person and the school. I did a 3-year program in media arts, which covered everything from photography to film and video, as well as audio. I've heard a lot of comments over the years from people who watched this show who felt like audio school was a waste of time and money. I really valued my time at school, but then again, I learned a lot more than just audio. Here's the truth of the situation. Unless you're considering to going to a school that actually will teach you useful production skills, say like OEArt in London, Ontario, chances are your local community college really isn't going to be able to teach you very much. Because whoever's teaching is going to have their attention divided among 20 to 30 students, so it's impossible to give everybody the help that they're going to need. And your time working in the school using their expensive gear will be limited to a ratio that's directly proportional to your class size. Now, another thing is, there's a chance that the school will go on about placement figures and how impressive they are. But they'll leave out the bit about how they consider a student landing a job in a record store is working in the industry. The simple truth is the large commercial recording studio is on the way out, at least as far as music production goes. Bands are recording themselves at home mostly these days and using larger studios to track drums or do final mixdowns. Even in the heyday, it was already difficult to land a studio job, even when the industry was making billions. But why should you spend tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars on a diploma that nobody is going to give a shit about? Because it's just a piece of paper. Every single college grad I've had come in here and apply to this place, I've said the exact same thing to them. That's great. What have you done? Let's hear something. That's just me, of course. Your experience may be different. Maybe you applied to a studio where they were very impressed by the piece of paper you brought. But then again, probably not. I think if you're an aspiring engineer, you'd be better off putting your money into some good gear so you can spend time on it uninterrupted and learn how to do this on your own. There are a multitude of great resources out there for online learning that will cost a fraction of what a college course will. And you'll not have the added benefit of being canceled by your classmates for blinking in an offensive manner. Recording school does have a benefit, however, for the schools and for the banks because you'll be paying off your student loan for most of your adult life. Now, just a reminder, Scott Elliott's Drum Programming Mastery course ends Thursday night, so if you want to get it while it's on sale for $97 instead of $147, grab it today. It's freaking awesome, and it will definitely teach you way more about programming blast beats and double bass runs than recording college ever will. And if you're a prospective student at one of these schools, try this. Ask your local recording college how many days in their curriculum is spent on metal production and what techniques in particular are going to be taught. I guarantee you, you're going to get nothing more than blank stares. Number 2, Mackie CR monitors. I did a video a few years ago called the $1,500 Recording Studio where we put together a full recording and mixing rig capable of recording a full band with live drums included. It was a bit of a struggle, but somehow we managed to pull it off. The weakest link in this entire setup? The monitors. I had a set of the Mackie CR3s, which were a whopping $89, and honestly, they sucked harder than Tory Black. I mean, seriously, the only thing they're good for is being a recipient of the Hammer of Truth. But instead of smashing them to bits like they deserved, I donated them. So now they're off fucking up somebody else's mixes. To say I'm not a fan of these is a bit of an understatement. They were extremely colored and just plain difficult to work with. Because they lack clarity, it became nearly impossible to make any kind of accurate decision with them, and my entire mix suffered as I found my snare drum would jump way out too much once I finally got to reference the mix on a decent pair of speakers. My advice, save up a bit more money and get the Kali LP6 monitors, which are best in class. A pair will set you back $300, and they are worth the extra expense as you'll save your sanity and not spend countless hours wondering why your mixes suck. Number 3. Acoustic foam treatment. All right, this is probably going to piss off more than a few of the manufacturers, but truthfully, this stuff doesn't work. At least not as intended, especially when it comes to trapping bass because it's pretty much fucking useless. But hey, it sure makes your room look like you know what you're doing. However, if you want your mixes to translate off your monitors and into the real world, you are going to probably need to treat your room, and foam wedges just are not going to be enough. The great thing is you can create your own bass traps for about $40 each. I did a video on how to make these, and I'll have a link to it at the end screen at the end of the video. They also work as high frequency and mid-range absorbers if you place them flat against a wall. But if you place them in corners where the bass frequencies build up, they become bass traps and you can get some really great results. I had an issue in my amp room as the bass frequencies were out of control until I finally built the traps. I've got them floor to ceiling, and the bottom end rumble issue that I was having with my rhythm guitars just vanished once I put them in. There's other designs you can make as well, such as super chunk absorbers. Another idea would be to do what Reed Shippen did, and he's one of the top mixing engineers in Nashville. He uses bookcases with hardcover books facing outwards, stacked in alternating horizontal and vertical segments. I've stood in that room and it sounds utterly phenomenal. If you go to a used book sale, you can usually pick up hardcovers for about $1 each. It's a great way to treat your room for dirt cheap, and I gotta admit, they look super cool as well. As always, if you're looking for rock solid advice on what to do with room acoustics, I recommend checking out the John Sayers Studio Design Forum. It's a fantastic resource, and it's where I got the plans to design the studio I'm working in right now. One thing to keep in mind about that foam treatment, especially if you decide to go with the cheap off-brand stuff. Don't take chances, as it might be classed as packaging and not acoustic treatment. This stuff was the cause of the station fire in 2003, which killed 100 people and injured an additional 230 when the band Great White's pyrotechnics ignited the stuff and burned the place to the ground with many people stuck inside. Whatever you buy, make sure it's fire rated. Don't take chances with your safety. Number 4, D-drum triggers. Why do these things suck? James Murphy recommended these more than a decade ago. We were going to do a record together, and James wanted me to track triggers on top of all the drums so he could use them to trigger gates. It's a great technique that I've used many times, that is, until every single one of the 7 D-drum triggers I purchased fucking broke several times over. I've tried soldering them, but they never last. So I'll ask again, why do these things suck so bad? Let me rephrase that. Why do they suck and swallow? Now, apparently the roll-in triggers are far superior and will last much longer. At least that's what I've been told. Hopefully, I'll be able to get a set for the show and try them out against the most punishing test known to man, the Garage Band Metal Drummer. If they can stand up against those Neanderthals, they'll probably work in your studio as well. Number 5, foam monitor pads. But Glenn, you've done sponsorships on this. Yes, I have, and I've got some really nice foam monitor pads installed right now, sitting under my Atom S2As. Some monitors might buzz against your stands or desktop, creating a distraction and skewing your mix results. Do foam monitor pads work? Yes, of course they do. Do cheap computer mouse pads do the exact same job? Yes, they do. Number 6, BBE Sonic Maximizer. Nothing screams amateur hour more than seeing the cursed BBE Sonic Maximizer in somebody's rack. This should just be considered client repellent. I've been searching for information on exactly what the hell the BBE units do, but I haven't been having much luck. Apparently, they're keeping it under wraps. It seems to be a case of, trust us, this will make your mix sound better, just don't ask how. According to sources, it's supposed to alter the phase and compensate for the high and low frequencies, leaving a loudspeaker at different times? Yeah, not so sure about that, especially when you consider that they've got a blood control. If it were actually doing that, it would sound worse than it actually does. In my own experience, I bought one in the 90s and got rid of it pretty early on in my studio days, as it really just kind of fucked with things in a not very good way. Your mileage may vary, of course, but if you absolutely insist on spending money on gear, you'll get far more use out of acoustic treatment than this hunk of shit. Number 7, cheap cables. I'm not going to go off on some wild rant about how brand X cable is so much better than brand Y. Simply put, if your cable is made out of copper wiring, then it all comes from the same place. The earth. Thick cables, thin cables, the thing that matters most is that your cable is durable and will stand up to years of use and abuse. I'm not saying premium cables won't improve your sound. There might be a slight difference, but you're far better off buying mid-grade cables and spending the rest of your cash on other things that will actually make a major difference in your productions, like better monitors. Number 8, super high-end cables. I've been approached by many cable brands over the years about doing shows on their superior cables. Thing is, I'm not completely convinced that they actually make that big of a difference in overall sound quality. Like maybe 1/5 of 1%, and that's only if the cable is running a few hundred feet. The reason I'm not convinced is because nobody's been able to show me a blind test where the same signal has passed through a premium cable versus a normal one with any real audible difference. Maybe if somebody presented me with some verifiable results instead of marketing bullshit, I'd be a little bit more open to exploring premium cables. Now, for what it's worth, I've got a bunch of the Hosa Pro Series cables in here, and they're reasonably priced and durable, and that suits my needs. Number 9, Line 6 Spider. The Line 6 Spider has definitely been one of my main targets on this show over the years, and it deserves it because it's produced bad tone after bad tone. We've reviewed several models and had a lot of fun making those episodes. The great thing is, Line 6 finally took the hint and upgraded the firmware with a Spider 5 Mark II and went from hideous abomination to somewhat actually usable. Anything before that, however, has no business being anywhere near a studio. There are far better software options for recording, with several being offered for absolutely free. And please, don't think I'm just picking on Line 6 either. Marshall embarrassed themselves with the Chode series of amps, which are equally dismal. Unless you really want your guitar to sound awful in a Norwegian black metal kind of way, leave the toys at home and try recording with a real amp. Number 10, those shitty Aliexpress mics. There are a lot of dirt cheap microphones coming from China that you can get for $100. Hell, there are some cheap Amazon mics from Neewer that are under 30. Guess what? They suck! Seriously, don't buy this shit. I reviewed the U87 clone earlier this year, and well, it got the hammer for good reason. Just because it looked like a U87 did not make it sound like a U87. To paraphrase Vim Fuego, you couldn't amplify a fart with that thing. Same goes for those Neewer mics. Even if you're pointing them the right way, they're just not very good. Look, I get it. Everybody loves a bargain, and I'm more than happy to hunt down great deals and do episodes on them. Like the Samson CS mic. It was an amazing dual capsule dynamic mic that I picked up for a whopping $30, and it was simply awesome.
I'm ready. Are you ready? I'm ready. Okay. Hi, man.
Unfortunately, they don't make them anymore. But not to worry, I'm working on a new episode about 5 different mics under $100 that don't completely suck. In the meantime, be wary of those Aliexpress and Neewer mics. You're better suited to spending your money on SM57s because you just can't go wrong with them. Number 11, the Mesa Cab Clone, both versions. You know, I used to hold the Mesa name in very high regard. I bought a dual rectifier way back in 2000 as a wedding present to myself, and I've still got it to this day. It was the amp that was used on the first 2 Woods of Ypres records, and I still plan on giving it away the day this channel hits 1 million subscribers. But when I started doing this show, some of the viewers kept asking me to check out the original Cab Clone. And wow, what a horrible piece of shit! No matter how you set it up, it just sounded terrible. I couldn't believe Mesa would stoop as low as to put their badge on an obviously inferior piece of gear. The main issue was it was an analog piece of gear imitating another analog piece of gear, and that's extremely difficult to do. Now, to their credit, they took the criticism to heart and licensed some superior technology from 2Notes and came out with a Cab Clone 2, which was a combination load box and IR loader. and it was pretty good. I certainly had no issue with the included IRs. They sounded great. If you open up the Cab Clone 2, you'll see it comes loaded with 2-notes chips. However, I found it was susceptible to grounding issues, and during my stint at Harmony Studios in Hollywood, it was pretty much unusable in there. As always, your mileage may vary, but for my money, the 2-notes Torpedo Captor X does a far better job for less money, as it's a 2-channel unit that can do a stereo signal. And I haven't encountered any of those awful noise issues with it. Number 12, Acer Laptop. I bought an Acer laptop a few years ago to produce this show while I was working in Hollywood. It started out great and sped up my workflow, but soon became a malfunctioning joke. The main video card for doing video editing would stop being recognized and Premiere would default to the 2D card. Not good. Windows had to be reinstalled several times as well. Finally, the USB port stopped working. Like, what a fucking nightmare! After much public ranting and raving on this channel, Acer stepped up and refunded my money. But let me be very clear here, they will not do that for you. The guys I bought the computer off were really dumbfounded that I actually managed to get Acer to issue a refund. It's definitely a blood from a stone type of situation. Eventually, I broke down and got a much more expensive custom laptop from Slick Audio, and it wasn't cheap, but it was worth the cash as it's been super reliable and Jim Slick has the best tech support I've ever encountered. If you're in the market for a production laptop, be sure to find out the return policy before you buy. Ask the seller what it's been like for customers trying to get their money back. No refund? Then walk away! It's not worth the risk. And if you're a Mac guy, just get AppleCare. Problem solved. Bear in mind, this is advice for people working with their laptops who can't afford downtime. I do 2 to 3 episodes a week, and my gear has to work. Your situation might be different. Maybe you can afford to waste your time. If that's the case, Acer might be right for you. Number 13, cheap mic stands. For the love of crap, do not cheap out on your mic stands. They'll break, sometimes when they're holding your expensive tube condenser. That's a repair bill you don't want to deal with. If you're spending money on gear, get something that's worth holding your expensive mic. The thing is, even moderately priced mic stands will do the job on non-critical mics. Samson makes some very affordable mic stands that are perfect for mic and guitar cabs. Same with Hercules. But for mission-critical, hold my expensive mic type of jobs, do not fuck around with anything less than top notch. For these jobs, I prefer the Tama Ironworks stuff or Triad Orbit. Both those brands will do the job and make sure your mic stays in place on the stand and not go for an unintended ride. All right, so that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching. I'm going to leave you with this question. Have you wasted money on really bad gear or recording school? Do you want to help out others so they don't waste their money too? Please leave a comment below and let us know what to avoid. See you next time.